Right, in my last video, we looked at all the Moto2 riders who are being promoted up to MotoGP for this upcoming season. So now I think it's time to look at all the Moto3 riders who are getting the promotion up to Moto2 for the upcoming season. We have 4 riders making this step up to Moto2 this year, which is a lot less than what we got last year. However, I think the quality of riders being promoted this year are a lot higher than in previous years. So let's just get into it really. We're going to start with Colin Vire. Colin Vire is only 19 years old and he has already established himself as a potential future star of MotoGP. So far in his career he's had 2 seasons in Moto3 and he very quickly managed to adapt to Moto3, becoming a frontrunner within about half a season really. He scored 2 victories in Moto2 across 2 seasons, and last season he finished 3rd in the championship and scored 9 podiums. He had some very consistent form and was a very impressive rider throughout the entirety of last year really. And that has earned him the promotion up to Moto2 this year, and he will be partnering Dennis Onchu on the KTM IO team. Throughout his time in Moto3, it was discussed among fans and commentators that Colin Vire is one of the taller of the riders in the paddock and he's very lanky, meaning that his stature and riding style really would suit bigger bikes like Moto2. Which is why his performances in Moto3 were so impressive. To be able to get wins and podiums out of a bike which you're not really adapted to, or your body doesn't really suit, it was really impressive. And because of that, I think there's a lot of expectation for Vire to hit the ground running quite early on in Moto2. And Colin Vire, we've already seen, is a fantastically talented rider. He's shown that in his qualifying performances, especially last year. While the rest of the Moto3 grid was always trying to find a toe and somebody to follow around during qualifying, Colin Vire would always be able to just go on his own and pull out a really fast lap time, get on the front row in most races, just completely on his own, which was a rarity in Moto3. He was pretty much the only one who would just go out by himself and bang out a lap time. It was very telling of how much speed and talent he's got, that he doesn't rely on the toe to get a good lap time in. Colin Vire has also shown throughout his career that he is very good on saving his tyres for the end of the race. He's got 2 main tactics from what I can tell. He will either lead the race from the start and try control the pace from the front, or he'll sit back a bit, not get too involved in all the scrapping near the front, wait till the end, save his tyres and then attack everybody at the end. Both of these tactics involve having to save your tyres, and Colin Vire does that very well. And last year showed, more than anything really, that tyres is massive in Moto2 now. Being able to save your tyres is a massive asset, and Colin Vire definitely has that going for him. However, if there's one criticism I've got of Colin Vire, it's that I think he crumbles under pressure a bit too much. He got 1 race victory last year, however I think he should have got a few more really. He was leading the entire race at Assen until he got overtaken on the very last corner. He crashed out of the lead in Indonesia and in Germany, and there were a few other times where he crashed out of promising positions as well. I think Vire can sometimes crumble a bit when there's massive amounts of pressure from behind him, and that's something he's going to have to learn in Moto2. However, despite that, I think Colin Vire has a really good chance of succeeding in Moto2 in this upcoming season. Like I said, his riding style and his just natural build suits Moto2 better than it does Moto3. He's really good on saving tyres, which is massive in Moto2, and especially for a rookie, I think he's going to have a good season. I don't know where he'll be in comparison to Dennis Onchu because I don't really know what sort of a season Onchu will have. However, I think Colin Vire will have a successful season. He'll have some races where he'll qualify well and fight near the front. However, being a rookie, it won't be all that consistent. I think his season will be very much like Moreira or Onchu's debut seasons, which we've just seen. He'll have some races where he's brilliant and fights for podiums, however, some races it just won't click for him. But yeah, I think a successful debut season for Colin Vire is coming up, which he will be able to build on as the years go on. Next up, let's look at Ivan Ortola. In my opinion, this move for Ortola is completely deserved. He's been very impressive for the past 2 seasons. And he will be partnering Sergio Garcia on that empty helmet squad, which is the reigning team's champions from Moto2, remember? So immediately there'll be some pressure on Ortola to perform, because I imagine that bike will be one of the fastest again next year. Ortola, I think, is a fantastic rider. He's shown so much promise across his career already. Remember, his first victory in Moto3 came from when he was literally about 20th after the first lap. He managed to fight his way through the field brilliantly to win that one. And across his last 2 seasons, he's shown himself to be very good in a last lap battle. He's won a fair few of them over the past couple of seasons. And as well as this, Ortola has shown across his career that he's just got so much raw speed in him. Last season he scored 6 pole positions, and in a season where David Alonso completely wiped the floor with everyone, 6 pole positions is actually very impressive. However, despite this, Ortola does have a setback in that I think he is a bit too crash prone. Last year, the main reason he wasn't able to put up a real title challenge is because he crashed out of too many races or made too many mistakes. There was that one in USA last season where he just completely wiped out Stefano Neppa. He can get a bit impatient sometimes when carving his way through the field, which has come back to bite him a few times. And as well as this, I think compared to some of the others, I don't think he's the best on tyres. We have seen a few races from him where he's fighting at the front but then drops off near the end because he just doesn't have the tyres to fight for the victory. It's something he needs to work on, but Ortola clearly has so much talent, and I think he will also have a very successful debut season. I would be very shocked if he's able to match Sergio Garcia across the season, because Garcia has already shown himself to be one of the best in Moto2. However, if Ortola is able to have the occasional weekend where he is able to match Garcia, and if he's able to score, a couple top 10, top 5 finishes, get a few good qualifyings, he will have a good season. I think him and Colin Wyatt will both have very similar seasons in terms of performance level, and they'll both have good seasons. Next, we've got the big one, David Alonso. Of course, the reigning Moto3 champion. He's just come off the back of one of the most dominant seasons in MotoGP history. 14 wins in 20 races, including winning the last 7 races in a row. He won the championship by 165 points. It was just astonishing to watch. He was so far clear of everybody else. And that's despite, I think, having a very talented group of people in Moto3 last year. David Alonso, I think his main strength is that he has the ability to win in so many different ways. He can lead a race from turn 1 and just dominate from the front. He can win a last lap scrap. He can save his tyres and then carve his way through the field with about 5 laps left and then pull a gap. He can do it all really. And no matter what the conditions were, he always seemed to be able to save some tyres for the end of the race. He is just a complete freak of nature, and I have no doubts that he will be at the very top of MotoGP in a few years' time. However, he's entering his debut season in Moto2 now, on the CF Moto team, the team which has been home to Jake Dixon for a while and has been able to help him get some victories in the past few years. So he will be joining one of the strongest teams on the grid. Some people will be tipping David Alonso to win the World Championship in his first season of Moto2. However, I think that is a bit optimistic. The Moto2 grid is very strong at the moment, and I think it'll take a lot for David Alonso to come in and win immediately. Remember, even Pedro Acosta didn't win his first season. He took like 5 or 6 races to really get the ball rolling. And I think David Alonso will have the same. I think he'll start a bit slowly. Don't get me wrong, he'll still be impressive, but I doubt he'll be fighting for victories or podiums in the first quarter of the season. However, I do envision him winning some races, and I think he's dead certain for top 5 in the championship next year. Maybe top 3, but I don't think he'll win the championship. I think he'll set himself up very well to be a firm favourite for the championship in 2026, ready to be promoted to MotoGP for the regulation changes in 2027. I think he'll have a debut season in Moto2 very similar to Pedro Acosta. Start a bit slowly and then towards the end get into the form which he needs to win the championship in the next season. I think to win the championship in his first season in Moto2 is just a bit too soon for him. And even David Alonso doesn't have that in him, in my opinion. But then again, this guy is just a complete alien, so he could easily prove me wrong here, but I think the grid is just a bit too competitive for him to, go and win it straight away. So yeah, I think David Alonso will get 1 or 2 race victories and end the championship in the top 5. Which, remember, for a rookie in Moto2, it would be super impressive, but I think he'll do it. He's just that good. And finally, we have Danny Holgado. Danny Holgado is actually going to be David Alonso's teammate for next year, which I think is already going to put him on the back foot a little bit. Having David Alonso as your teammate will be absolutely soul-crushing, just seeing him perform better than you every weekend. It will definitely, demoralise Holgado a bit. Now, I'll be completely honest, Holgado is the only one of the promoted bunch this year which I'm a bit concerned for. I was surprised when he was announced for Moto2 for this upcoming season, and that is because I do think he needed another year in Moto3. I know he finished second in the championship, but I still didn't think he showed much improvement from the previous year. I think he was just a lot of more of the same. He was very consistent, but he was only able to get one race victory. His title challenge was pretty much over before the summer break, and I don't know, I just think he needed one more year in Moto3. Despite the fact he finished ahead of both Colin Vire and Ivan Ortola last year, I was more impressed by the latter two than Holgado. Holgado just sort of finished in about 4th in every race. He didn't have that many standout performances. He only won one race. He only got one pole position, and that was in the opening round in Qatar. And as well as that, he lost a lot of last lap battles. Holgado, his main tactic is to lead from the front. He loves leading races, he wants to control the pace. However, this is partly due to him being against David Alonso, but at the same time, he can't lose every single last lap battle against David Alonso. It just seemed like every time he made his way to the front, he'd end up getting beaten up on the last couple of laps, and as a result, he only won one race. And like I said, with Alonso as his teammate next year, he'd do very well not to get demoralised halfway through the season, seeing Alonso in the lofty positions, and if Holgado's not able to perform up to the same level, he'll just get demoralised, thinking, why can't I do the same as him? So yeah, I think next year will be very tough for Holgado, and if he's able to do well, fair play to him, but I think, especially compared to Alonso, he will struggle a bit. However, we have seen from him, he's got a lot of talent clearly, and I do think that across the season we will see one or two glimmers of brilliance from him. Maybe it'll be a standout qualifying or a good result. He'll show some glimmers of promise in there, and I think eventually he will become good in Moto2. However, I do think it's just a bit too early for him, or he might struggle for now. I think in a couple years' time he'll be a very, very good rider in Moto2, but I think he might struggle initially. I think he could be similar to Izan Guevara, where he starts his Moto2 career quite slowly, but then slowly gets better as time goes on. Holgado has shown that he is very good at bringing the bike home. He only retired from one race last year. He doesn't crash very often, and that will of course come useful in Moto2. However, I just worry for him a bit. I'm not convinced he'll be an outright success compared to the others. However, I'd like to be proven wrong. If Holgado is able to keep up with Alonso across the whole season, then fair play to him. And with that, those were the 4 riders being promoted from Moto3 to Moto2 for the upcoming season. And I want to know what you guys think. How will these 4 riders do? Will David Alonso become world champion in his debut year? Will any of these riders struggle? Let me know in the comments below. And while you're there, make sure to leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys very soon. Bye bye.